So Alan, what would be your third secret to success?
Welcome change. When you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you're dying. And I can tell you, Paul, change is inevitable.
Well, change, I mean, let's look at, for example, an example would be, say, the internet. Right?
Technology. That's right. That's why I have a website. I have autoresponders on all the different shows that I have. And you take advantage of that. I'm finding now that 1 in 10 shows now are booked over the internet for me.
So I guess years ago it would be the yellow pages, and today it's becoming the internet. So you have to embrace the technology
and the changes,
and go with it. And if you don't, you'll be left behind. Is that correct? Would you say that's correct?
I'm finding like the yellow pages for me now used to be a major source for generating work.
Yeah.
It's now on a downward slide.
Now because you design websites, and I also would throw this in because I'm going to put it at the end of the DVD so people can look this up. You are the editor of an e-zine, Magic NZ, which is one of the largest, what we call it, e-zine magazines for magicians in the world. How many subscribers do you have?
It goes out to 11,721 each
magicians
Sunday,
each week?
and do 78 different countries.
Wow, that's amazing. I don't know how you find time to do all this, Alan, with your shows and the e-zine. It's incredible.
But I do it because Magic's been very good to me and my family, and it's one way of giving back.
That's fantastic. I know so many people love it. I love getting it because it's how I find out about news and what's going on within Magic. But getting back to welcoming change and growing, I guess that's part of longevity, right? If you want, like for example, we talked about this earlier, but Madonna, it keeps coming into my mind for some reason because she's been in the business for so long, in the music business. I'm just using Madonna as an example, and she goes with the times, right? She keeps, and that's why she's at the top. And you're the same. You keep, you welcome change. And then, for example, I want to say this. I know we talked about Rainbow's End earlier. When I was growing up, I would go to Rainbow's End at the theme park and watch your work. And I saw you recently. I just flew back into the country and was able to see your work. And your act has changed so much. You've kept ahead of the times. You've modernised it. You've added in illusions, and it was brilliant. And I thought, wow, there's a guy that knows what he's doing. That's why he's working. Proof of the pudding.
Not only that, the music. Remember, I'm using double iPods now with a decent cross-fading, so that it looks like, sounds like a continuous sound.
Yeah.
All digital.
So it's all those little things. So rather than being scared of change change, you embrace it, and that's a great point.
It's a great way of staying ahead of the opposition too.
That's right. Well, let's look at. So we've got technology is a big change. What other changes perhaps would there be that we need to embrace? Well, for example, shopping malls. They're changing in New Zealand. Shopping malls. We talked about this earlier, but it does come into this point. They're changing their theories or thoughts on what they want for entertainment. So maybe, as an example, rather than doing shows, maybe walkabout.
Yes, you can do walkabout, but I find one of the best ways of selling shopping malls. I work at Royal Oak.
Right.
Their door counter goes up 300% when we work there in that week. And new people into the mall.
Is that right?
300%.
So now, and we're going to talk about this later on too, about the publicity. I would imagine, because I know you, that a lot of the shows you do, you use those shows to generate not only other shows, right? Other shows, and we'll talk about this also, about how you can do a performance and how that performance can generate more work.
Well, one of the things that I do, and I do well, I give out 70,000 business cards a year at the shows. Now, I don't pay for them.
Now, here's a great Alan Watson story, because this is something that a lot of people probably aren't aware of. But could you explain that? Because that's a lot of business cards, and that would cost me a lot of money to print, but you don't pay for it.
Well, I find that that's a very effective way of publicising yourself. I get a major corporation or a company that wants to be on the other side of the business card, sell them the concept, they print them, and I distribute them.
So
they're on a win-win situation because I'm getting into markets that they like more acknowledgement from.
Sure, yeah. Now, also with change, embracing change, that must mean, we talked about this, but you have to keep ahead of everyone else. In other words, so you probably have to read a lot.
Well, I'm constantly reading new ideas or researching new ideas on marketing. I read the marketing journals, also motivational books. I find that they keep you all
Now-
fired up too.
Because we both, one of the things when I was growing up, Alan encouraged me with the marketing side and the business side of the business. We belong to an organisation called SWAP,
Mhm.
which is salespeople with a purpose.
Mhm.
And I found that really, and this is again about keeping up with the times and the changes, it was like-minded people, correct?
Agreed. Birds of a feather flock together. If
Yeah.
you want to be successful, mix with successful people.
Right, because these business people, we would meet every Wednesday morning, I think it was, and we would have breakfast. They'd have a motivational speaker, and I would come away from that, and Alan got me into this, I would come away from that business meeting so fired up. And I really, my work, I'm a full-time magician, so my work, rather than sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring, I was out there doing what you're teaching us today, you know, I was out there getting the work. And you don't wait for the phone to ring, do you?
No. Mix with successful people. They don't have to necessarily be magicians.
No, that's
they can
right.
be in any field. And sometimes those people's skills can actually inspire you to develop into different areas that will help you with your business.
Well, that inspired me to get into motivational speaking, and I wrote a book called Laugh Yourself Well. So you don't know where it's going to take you.
That's right.
And then I embraced the change. I learned something new. I learned about this, and another door opened. So one door can close and another can open, right? And you have to take advantage of that other door opening.
And sometimes you have to refocus too. You can't try and do everything. You have to let go, identify where you're going, and let go things that are not so important.
And that's probably the best advice I think I ever received. And I remember you telling me this, because you remember I was going, and a lot of magicians, we all do this. Well, I do, and I'm sure I'm like a lot of other magicians. We all try to do too much, perhaps, try to do everything. If a job were to come in, because you know your limits, right? Now this is important. If a job were to come in and you thought to yourself, because I know that you do trade shows, you do children's parties, and close-up, you do quite a lot, and you've done television, but if a job were to come in, and you do your theme park, the illusion show, but if a job were to come in, would you take it, or would you, if you know you couldn't do it?
I have enough work because I'm doing around 800 shows a year. That'll give you an idea. It's less than what I was doing,
I know.
5 years ago.
You were doing 7 shows a day sometimes.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Well, you maybe still last weekend, I know, and you've got to drive tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning. So getting back to that question, so you don't need the work.
No, I do things that I know I can do well because I'm always of the opinion there's 3 people in that show that could potentially book me for further work. I want to do a spot-on show every time.
Yeah, that's great because you never know who is in the audience,
Correct.
right? I learned that a long time ago too, and that's a very important point. So we've looked at, well, also I guess going to magic lectures is important, and reading a lot of magic literature, the magazines,
We'll just go to a magic lecture. You only have to pick up 1, maybe even 2 items from it, and that lecture's paid for itself.
Right.
As long as you put them into practice.
Now, welcoming change, I think this is a great point, and it's important because it also, not just the business side of it, like the internet, but it must include the actual magic, because you want to keep the passion. So you must still have the passion for magic.
I love it.
So you will still be watching DVDs and videos and
Correct.
and
Going to international conventions.
right. So that's all about change as well, seeing what the latest is or latest magic trick is, and just keeping ahead of everyone else. It's a business, right? So you're keeping ahead of your competitors, if you like. Even though it's just funny because you're one of my best friends, and it's a funny world, magic, and I don't think it's an unusual business world because there's not that many businesses, I wouldn't think, where your best friend is also your competitor in business.
I agree.
Agree?
Yeah, it can be hard sometimes.
I mean, you look
especially if you're working in the same area.
Well, I know because you and I used to work the same area quite a bit, close up and so on.
Yeah.
But again, and this is a good point, is that we were never. I never felt this. I'm sure you didn't. We never. What's that word? We were never affected, or we never worried about.
It's because we both were doing what we do. You weren't copying my magic,
No.
I wasn't copying yours.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of work for everybody.
That's the other thing, is that I believe this too. There is a lot. You hear magicians talking about, oh, there's not enough work, but I think if they put these secrets that you're talking about into practice, that it will generate work, and there is work out there. And we've talked about this, and I'm going to go back to this point, but realize your market, establish your market and work at that. So there is enough work out there for people.
I agree.
And certainly you're a classic example. I mean, I'm sure you've seen a lot of magicians and birthday party magicians, competitors, in the time that you've been a professional, which is, I don't know how many years you've been pro now. How many years have you done this?
Full-time, 18 years.
18 years, and you've been at the top the whole time. But you must have seen a lot of people come and go.
I have, mainly clowns, but not so much.
No, not so much magicians.
They've gone on and done better things.
Yeah, thank you. But that's because I think they embrace what's going on. The reason that these clowns come and go is because they don't embrace what's... They can't handle the changes. And children, I mean, let's just talk about birthday parties. You must have found this, that children are becoming a lot older at a younger age.
Yeah, and a lot more aggressive.
A lot more aggressive. So you've got to adapt.
Agree.
So you have to be adaptable, would you say?
Very much so. Yeah.
And that would also apply to being able to the longevity of a gig or a job, or is.
It's constantly changing. At Rainbow's End, I'm constantly looking at ways to improve. Every show I look at, how can I improve it? Even if it's only minor, because over a year, it's surprising how many, all those little changes make a big difference.
Do you put a lot of new magic into your show, or does it happen over a period of time?
What I tend to do is I have my routine, and then I'm looking at dropping one out, and I put one in and I work it until it's up to what I call a professional level where I'm happy with it. Once I'm happy with it, then I'm looking at something else to drop out and
right,
put
okay.
something new in.
And so you work at stuff, I know you work at stuff for a year, 2 years, and
Yep.
till you finally got it. And but you also, about getting back to welcoming change, I mean, you're also looking at the best way to do something. So that's why you have to keep ahead and read the magazines, because you never know what's going to come in, or you'll learn something new.
That's right.
So would you say because you are established, you would say that you're constantly learning?
Never stop. That's why I said, when you're green, you're growing, when you're ripe, you're dying.